Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're well and having fun during these times of great terrif terrifying conditions. Okay, I wanted to give a quick review of just some other developments outside of the markets. On the market side of things, we are neutral. MSP to its benefit, at least of late, naturally has not been finding opportunities. So we remain on the sidelines. The Signet strategies continue to hold up reasonably well. Certainly doing much better than the markets are overall. But today's session is just really about this AI situation. So let me bring that up for you now. Just a moment. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to give a little bit of the background on this and just talk about some of the developments. So during these kind of times when we've taken the market related position of being very protectionist, in addition to this overall philosophy, the strategies themselves or the core strategy, MSP hasn't been finding opportunities. We're in good company. It essentially Warren Buffett has his largest cash position ever. We were probably a little bit early in taking this position, but that wasn't necessarily due to any kind of genius foresight as such. It was just that there weren't many opportunities meeting the criteria, and that may be the case for a little while. We're probably going to have some good short-term opportunities in line with the almost inevitable ongoing volatility. Even if this tariff situation does somehow resolve itself very quickly, it's very hard to see how we're not going to have a prolonged period of volatility at the least, even if it resolves itself in some sort of positive manner. Now, so that means there could be some short-term opportunities, but there could also be a continuation of the lack of opportunities. So we could be on the sidelines for a little bit longer than anticipated, or have little to no opportunities, or we go through a period of adaptation and trying to find new opportunities and new strategies that are better suited to these kind of conditions. In saying that, it is a good time to be on the sidelines, ladies and gentlemen. This is a good time to not have to worry about the global economy tumbling down, breaking down, and all the other things that you've heard on the news lately. So during these times, during even the best of times, we don't rush opportunities or take them for the sake of them. What we have been doing, in addition to looking for ways to adapt and ways to sort of be ahead of the curve at least, while remaining protectionist, yeah, at least for the time being. What we have been doing is trying to develop new tools and new education initiatives, because the one thing that is always good to invest in, especially during times like this, is education. Your education, everybody's education. Education is always valuable, um, evergreen, as they would say. And so the much of this thinking that I'm going to be talking about today, outside of AI. Sorry, 1 second, please. outside of the new and fancy AI stuff, is it actually predates AI, and it's actually comes down to something called epistemology, the fancy word of the day, of the year maybe. And much of my learning on this topic, or reinforcement and enhancement on this topic, comes from a lady named Annie Duke. And if you go to the members site here, courses, au.com.au/courses, or you can even just search the members homepage or any other page. If you're into these things, that's it there. There she is. Comes from her works. So it's all about structured decision making, logical decision making, God forbid. And her famous work is actually called How to Think in Bets. And so it's about how to be on the winning side, or position yourself in such a way that you are probabilistically on the winning side of this ongoing game of uncertainty. So it actually comes down to this thing called game theory, which is is all about having a structured decision-making process under conditions of uncertainty, repeated over time. And if that's not a great analogy for trading and investing, I don't know what is. And it is, of course, because it's a great analogy for life itself, and the way that works. And so, in continuing on with this line of thought, what that actually means is we're from an education perspective, we're trying to encourage people to think as a one-person hedge fund. If you are a self-directed investor, and everybody is to some degree, of course. If you are the sort of person who's a little bit more proactive with these things, for example. But it's what it actually means to be a one-person hedge fund in continuing along the lines of structured decision-making processes, and this whole thing called investment psychology or trading psychology that everybody likes to talk about, but nobody really defines what it is. Well, it's much more than just the old treat trading like a business type thing. You actually need to be a lot more organized and a lot more structured like that than that, and that's why we're framing it as such as the one-person hedge fund. Now, having a structured decision-making process means that yes, you're taking decision making out of the process as much as possible, but it also means that you're getting to the point where you have a business plan as such that allows you to delegate. And what that means, as a one-person hedge fund, you're actually delegating to different internal processes or internal personas rather than external personas. So if you were running a hedge fund, you would be the CEO and probably the CIO as well, or have some overlap there between CEO and CIO, Chief Investment Officer. But there would also be the compliance manager, the general manager, the risk manager. You would have the analyst, at least one analyst, and you would have at least one trader. And that order that I've just given it to you there in is the actual typical order of priority. And I point that out because the trader comes at the end. The trader is essentially just the person or entity that conducts the execution, that places the trade once all the other criteria has been met. Okay. Now, importantly, that trader is sometimes not a human. It's sometimes just a machine, an algorithm, an algorithmic program. Okay, but that doesn't matter. But it does highlight the point that the trader is actually the least important aspect of the chain of command in the process as such. Now, having a structured business plan and acting as a one-person hedge fund means that you can go through this process of wearing multiple hats, but in a clearly compartmentalized and structured structured manner, and in line with what we're actually talking about today, is you can actually start to delegate some of these processes, if not a large portion of these processes, not just to your internal persona as such, acting as the version of you that wears the analyst hat, for example, but having an AI tool, or effectively a persona in a sense, or effectively, more accurately, a member of your one-person hedge fund that performs these tasks for you, whether that be analysis, execution, review, consideration, basically just soundboarding, and a range of other things that we're going to discuss as well. And so I want to just take a little bit of a step back and talk more specifically about what we mean by AI, because like so many things, it isn't properly defined, and if you can imagine such a thing, it's misused and abused by all the usual characters in financial services and other places as well. So what is artificial intelligence? Well, for a long time we've had what are essentially not artificial intelligence, but actually algorithmic processes. Okay, and so an algo, if you forgive my terrible writing there, gets worse. An algo is actually an automation. It's not actually artificial intelligence, okay? Because an automation or an algo just works on what's known as an if this then that format, an IF format, which is essentially just the same way that an Excel spreadsheet works, for example, in that it's just purely matching a criteria, working according to a simplified and quantified, concretely defined criteria. So it's if you can imagine it just like a flow chart, for example. So something like this, for example. Okay, so very simple. If the price is greater than the 200 period moving average, I mean if it isn't, then you avoid the trade. Okay, if it is, then you risk 2% and you enter the trade. So this is the way that trading robots in various forms have worked for a long time, decades. Yeah, okay. Now what happens is marketing people love to, well, until recently, but maybe even more so recently, have taken this AI and they go and market it as they've taken this algo, which is just an automation of a quantitative decision-making process, and they've marketed it to the all too trusting and unsuspecting public as AI, when it's not AI, because it doesn't actually have a thinking process involved. Now, as you've no doubt heard, if not directly experienced, the modern day large language models, your GPTs, your ChatGPTs, and the others, there are hundreds of them now, actually do have a thinking process involved. And it's because they have a large language model of the world, a mapping of the world condensed into human language, that they are actually able to probabilistically reference and then output a result in the form of advice, education, or code that can be used to manually or automatically implement into other tools and functions. Okay, so that sounds complicated, and yes, it is, at least on the back end as such. Interestingly enough, whether this is a tangent or not, these large language models, believe it or not, are actually prediction engines. They're actually simultaneously referencing stored knowledge, making a predictive calculation, making an output, and then simultaneously referencing the stored knowledge on an ongoing basis and rewriting it in real time as such, in order to output language. But that is a bit of a tangent, but it uses a stochastic process, if you're familiar with that term. Anyway, I do digress. And so how does all of this help you, and how does it help us help you? Well, we have quite a bit um, in currently in place, and in the works. So one of the simple ways in which it can help is just simply to help you make sense of some of the things that you'll find on the website, or help you find it in the process, or to begin with, I might even say. So, for example, you see here on most pages, you have your little Q button there. Now, the Investor Unity AI is called IQ, IU.au, or just IQ, or even just Q. So you can click that, or you can press Control Q on your keyboard, and it's going to bring up a bar like so, a panel like so. Now you'll notice there are two versions currently, and we have more in the works. But this one here is intended to just be fast and efficient as such, to help you find what you need or give you some basic reference and context. And this one is actually a bit more advanced, because it can look up your profile details. It can actually reference the stored information that you have on your member profile. So naturally, that does depend upon you actually having the information on your profile. So if you want to go to that page, it's just /me. You should at least try to make sure that it has information that that the AI and us can use to communicate with you more effectively. Now, and that's just the beginning, but let's continue to explore how this can help. All right, so there are basic things that you can just ask the AI, like you would with any AI. The difference here, however, and I should take a little bit of a step back, because these large language models, while they do have their strengths, they do also have their weaknesses. Now, one of the weaknesses is properly maintaining context. So maintaining I believe they call it persistence, or persistent state, where they can actually maintain a proper identity in order to fulfill a function. And so, as you can imagine, in this context, it means that the AI needs to be effectively trained and refined to consider financial topics. Okay, so that's one. It also needs to. One of the problems that we have with all AIs, and it's not perfected with IU's AI, but it is certainly improved through the refinement and customization, is as is this problem of hallucination, where if it doesn't know the answer to something, it won't clarify or just say I don't know. It will guess. So it's kind of like a poorly trained um, financial advisor or salesperson in that sense. It doesn't like to say I don't know for whatever reasons, various potential reasons. But we've made significant improvements upon the the way that works by default, and so it is quite good at asking clarifying questions and ensuring, at least to a meaningful degree of improvement, um, that it's not just going to make stuff up. It still will, and of course you have all the other caveats that come with using a tool like AI, but it is certainly a major improvement. Um, the other major weakness with AIs is that it's often not very good with mathematical reasoning. In that, if you were to ask it to perform a quantitative assessment on a potential investment opportunity, for example, it will get the math wrong, or it will rationalize the math in a way that doesn't actually make sense in order to distill that into a trading and investment decision. So, so these are things we've already made significant improvements upon from the default models as such, um, but will continue to be refined on an ongoing basis. So take that into account as you will. So there's that, and there are basic things like just asking it to give you a chart and just help find things on the IU site. So nice and easy like that. So it can give you things that you have directly asked for, of course, but you can also ask it things like, we were give me charts for the biggest banks in Australia, or the world's largest oil producer, or whatever it may be. And it's quite good. It's very accurate at understanding your intentions and just facilitating that like so. Now, one of the other things it can do is, and actually one of the other major weaknesses with AIs. Just one moment, please. So one of the other major weaknesses with AIs, broadly speaking, in their current state, is trying to find and reference up to date, and I emphasize this, reliable financial information. Okay, so one of the troubles is it has the same problem that a human has, in that uh, when a human goes and searches the web, or YouTube, God forbid, or any of the other things, God forbid, social media, um, for reliable and up to date information, or just even just reliable, but let alone reliable and up to date information on financial market developments, and how to distill them and how to put them into action, etc., etc. It struggles. It struggles. It does. AIs more broadly, I'm talking about here, your chat GPTs and your other ones. They don't search all that well, and they certainly aren't very good at making sure that they only search across reliable information sources. Okay, and I've tested this a lot myself, and it often gives some really terrible recommendations, recommending considering companies reputable when they're actually quite well known to be terribly disreputable. So that's a major weakness with AI, at least in its current state. So the point of implementing this for clients is to do it in a tailored way and an ongoing managed curated way. And so what that means, for example, is that we can provide you with quality information that you can then use AI to better distill and clarify and learn about, and then put that into action for yourselves in a, God forbid, structured and logical way, which is what it's really all about at the end of the day. So, for example, and I'll just give you this one as an example that I created recently, just for the sake of this example. So the one of the things people say to you sometimes is that you don't need to pay for education or something like that, because you can just go on YouTube and you can find it for free. Well, you can find stuff on YouTube and other places, but how reliable that is, assuming you actually know what to look for in terms of reliability, and assuming you don't get tripped up and trapped and distracted along the way, is another very, very big question. But yes, you can find it if you know what you're looking for, and if you don't fall into, if you don't hit any of the many, 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 many landmines along the way. And so, for example, this is actually a quality piece of information that that comes from YouTube. But you can actually find very high quality information out there, such as this one from MIT, and it's a long and in-depth discussion of portfolio management as part of a broader series. It goes for an hour and a half, and as you can see here, the information is not exactly readily accessible by the average mum and dad investor. Not that they should be expected to. And so the point here is that we can provide you with information that's actually actual quality, and then you can come along and chat with it. And so the AI here is actually able to access this video content in this example and distill it for you. So let's put it to the test. Okay. So on and so forth. Okay. And you can continue the conversation from there. You can save this so that it becomes part of your broader plan. You can send it through to us at Investor Unity for further review and consideration and verification, and so on and so forth. It's just even if it's in its current state, it's just a very, very efficient way of taking relatively dense and relatively complex examples. And this is a very, well, this is a fairly advanced, if not very advanced, piece of content here. But taking that and distilling it and refining it, tailoring it in such a way that it can be actionable to you as an individual, according to your preferences and considerations, etc. Okay, so very, very useful stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And beyond this, there's even more that we're going to be putting out in relation to more specific opportunities and analyses. For example, And so now this gets back to this notion of structured decision making in relation to, in the context of created or at least curated information with the assistance of AI. And so this next part that I'm about to show you isn't quite ready yet, but you would imagine having an analysis piece that we put out or someone else puts out or whatever the case may be, or you can do it yourself. And then you boil it down to a flowchart process like so in order to properly map out the decision making. And so again, this aspect of the tool isn't publicly released yet, but it does work, at least in a rudimentary sense. It just needs more refinement so that I can confirm that it works with the more complex examples like so. And so, given that the artificial intelligence has access to your your information, or the information you've given it, I should say, what you can then do is take a piece of analysis or take a potential opportunity, and whether that may be um, an individual stock that you're considering purchasing, adding to your portfolio, or whether that's a particular trading strategy offered by Investor Unity or someone else, perhaps. You can use the AI to boil this down and boil it down for you to distill the decision making process for you. Okay. Now, this, just to be clear, this that you see here was actually created as a chat request. So I asked the AI. I said, please map out this decision making process for me because I'm considering doing this. Okay, and so it just created this on the fly. It took about 10 seconds or less, and it just maps out the decision making process for you so that you can probably say, well, is this happening? Yes, no. What does that mean to me? So on and so forth. So it's really quite incredible in terms of the capabilities and the direction this is heading. And if you are the sort of person that does actually value logic and above that clarity in your decision making processes, then it can be incredibly useful. And as I say, there are much more advanced versions that can be created like so, according to much more complex multifactorial considerations and more in-depth um, analyses and so forth. And bear in mind, once again, the advanced version of the AI can reference the information that you've given in your member profile to tailor these types of decision-making processes for you. So those of you that have been with Investor Unity for some time know that we're big fans of logic, God forbid, and that we're very anti-sales in general. It sort of comes from our history in the early days of Investor Unity, but one of the biggest overlooked challenges in the financial services industry is the industry itself. It is finding who you can trust and who you can take advice from. There's a lot of people that are competent but don't have the best intentions, and there's a lot of people that have the best intentions but aren't also competent. Excuse me, competent. That is. And of course, there's every variation. Sometimes you have a great company, but there's less undesirables within that company, and there's every combination of variation as you can imagine. So I'm limited in the communication that I can put forth to clients, and I'm limited in my time. As much as I love to help people, creating tools like this and making them available to clients is just a great overall sort of culmination of the overall ethos and philosophy and everything else that we try to do with the Investor Unity. I do come from an education background, so it's great. Um, so that's that. Now, so this in its current form will be available very very soon. And what you also be able to do in more advanced versions is take this and actually convert it into a trading system, a full blown algorithmic trading system if you want, or semi-automated trading system, because it's very important to understand that having a structured decision making process is not necessarily um, purely mathematical. Okay, so this is where it all sort of ties back into the idea of so-called so-called AI with real AI. And real AI actually has the ability to think and consider much more nuanced and non-concretely or quantitatively defined concepts. And so what that means is that if you have a decision-making process like this, just again using this as a simple example, what that means is that you can have the AI be part of the decision-making process. So let's say, for example, there's a break, and this is just a very simple example, ladies and gentlemen. So let's say that rather than a system automatically or quantitatively following the decision-making path from this yes factor automatically to risk 2%, instead, what it does is it has not quite a circuit breaker as such, but it has a review point where the real AI comes in and asks questions about the current geopolitical climate, for example, or social media sentiment, or a combination of public online sentiment and so forth. And then it gives that an additional multiplication factor multiplier. And so let's say, for example, based upon let's say the geopolitical climate is uncertain, it then applies back a 0.5. Let's get this right. So then it sends back a 0.5 or half, 50% multiplier. Okay, so it says, yes, just to recap, it's saying, yes, the price is above the 200-day moving average, so that meets the first part of our criteria. However, let's have a think about the sort of things that can't be quantified and can't be mathematically formulated necessarily. We'll have a think about that, and the current geopolitical climate is not great, but it's still acceptable. So we'll proceed with this trading opportunity, but we'll do so at half the risk. And so rather than risk 2%, we take half that and it risks 1%. Okay? So this is just a very, very basic example of how you can integrate, in conjunction with everything else that I've said, how we can integrate real AI, not purely algo type stuff into your decision-making processes as a human being, either in a standalone manner or in conjunction with algorithmic processes. Okay? And so then you're effectively getting the best of both worlds in that you have something like a thinking risk manager or general manager in conjunction with quantitative analysts and traders that all work together to maximize your possibility of profit, probability of profit. Okay, that is a dollar sign if you can believe that. And so this all ties, closing the full loop here. This all ties back in with that concept of the one person hedge fund, and how it works with AI, as you can imagine here, as I've just discussed, is you're effectively creating not just tools. You previously had tools, but now what you have are real staff members, effectively members of your team that can work for you in your hedge fund. Sometimes they can do things that you just can't do. Sometimes they can do things that you just don't want to do, like trawling through large pieces of data. And sometimes they can just take whatever it is you're currently doing and make you a much more efficient operator overall. Okay, just enhancing your existing abilities and knowledge and skill sets. Okay. All right, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'll leave you. I'll leave you with that. Much more is to come. Please go ahead, and if you are interested, go ahead and please update your member profile so that we can keep you better informed. This has all been expanded, and so it's not just usable by the AI, but it's also usable by us so that we can keep you better informed. And if you are interested in the specifics of these, then just go ahead and register, or keep an eye out for those. Will be these latest 4 courses, are being rolled out on a lesson by lesson basis, just according to our capabilities, especially in considering everything that's happening in the markets at the moment. But get in touch. Let me know how we can help you with this. We're really looking for people that are willing to be test pilots as such. In fact, there's an article there called Test Pilots, but we're looking for people to be testers. So if you do want to be on the sort of the priority or early notification list for all of these new functions that are being rolled out, then please do let me know. Okay, so everything that I've said thus far is intended to be a big benefit overall, and there's a lot more to come. It's really quite incredible. Each sort of new development or new level that we reach opens up more possibilities. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for coming. We wish you successful trading and investing, and bye for now.